What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the second vlog in our series for the prep towards a natural bodybuilding competition come October. Today should be a pretty fun episode. We got a back and biceps training that we're about to go in and do here at Atlantis Gym. After that, we're going to go do a bit of a Costco haul, my weekly visit to Costco where I just kind of restock on usually more of my protein sources, but also if I need some fruits, eggs, egg whites, all that good stuff. Because I'm eating a lot of the same stuff oftentimes, I usually tend to buy in bulk, and it tends to, most of the time, come out as a little bit cheaper, and it's just easier to go to one place to buy all the stuff that I need for my meal prep. But yeah, we're going to go in there, we're going to hit back, biceps, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the exercises that we're going to do, and then from there, we'll head over to Costco, and I'll see you guys back at my place where I'll show you what I buy, why I buy it, and we're going to talk a little bit about some other things. We're also going to talk about a update that I had with my coach, what the plan is going to be for my diet in the coming weeks, and I guess some of my thoughts that I'm having at this time now that we're about 5 months out of the competition. Still with some good time to go, but eventually it's going to be time to lock in and become a lot more serious with the diet and training. Not that it hasn't been serious already, but definitely going to have to be cutting out even more things as the diet becomes more and more strict and proper. See you guys in there for the first exercise. Let's get it. So here we are, post-production Shayne coming at you. Exercise 1 for this back workout is going to be a neutral grip pull-up, and we've added a 25-pound plate. We're trying to get as many reps as we can here, but obviously being able to do full range of motion and control, most importantly, the eccentric or downward portion of the pull-up is important. And would you look at that? Aucune craie n'est permise. For all my non-French speaking buddies, that just means no chalk is permitted. See? Never say I never taught you anything. So we did that for 4 sets. Great attachment where you can kind of go to any grip you want. Moving on to this next exercise, we got the barbell row with our chest supported. And you'll see with this barbell, what's pretty cool is that it's curved in a way that I can row towards me and the bar will not hit the bench. I can actually get higher up into the row and get a more complete range of motion, which I think just allows a little better stimulation of the muscles, and the chest support means that I don't have to worry about my lower back and that fatiguing or needing to stabilize me as I go through this great exercise. Probably one of my favorite ones that I do here at Atlantis. Not every gym has this attachment, unfortunately, but a great YouTuber by the name of Matt Ogus used to do this quite a bit with some stacked benches. He called it a seal row for all my OGs out there. So we did this for a few sets. Great stimulation, great exercise. And then moving on to exercise 3. We have the classic seated cable row with a close grip. And what I do with this exercise that I don't see with a lot of other bodybuilders or people who are working out is the sort of forward lean, where I'm not just dumping the weight forward, but I'm allowing my hip to hinge a little bit, get a really good stretch in the lats, and then I row as I'm pulling back to a more neutral position. I'm never leaning back beyond that sort of 90-degree mark. I find this gets incredible stimulation. I get an amazing pump doing this exercise. And you'll hear a lot about classic bodybuilders from the 70s and 80s doing this all the time. Guys like Robbie Robinson, Tom Platz. You see Arnold do it in Pumping Iron. Guy just looks like a beast doing it. The last exercise for the back is going to be a bent over T-bar row. And you'll see here I'm not really using much weight at all. It's a 25-pound plate. So I'm just going for total control. My back's pretty fatigued at this point. Don't really need to go super heavy. I do feel it's working my lower back, to be honest. I've had a couple of mishaps in my lower back earlier in my 20s, so I tend not to go too nuts with the bent over stuff. But good way to finish off the back before we head on to our bicep workout. It's going to be 3 exercises, opening it up with ye old inclined dumbbell curl. I always do just kind of one warm-up set quickly, either on the incline or standing and just taking some 15s and banging out like 12-15 reps. But again here, full range of motion, contract for a second at the top, control the eccentric, and rest at the bottom for just a half moment. Remember, it's not about the weight you're lifting, it's about making the weight feel as heavy as it can. And if you can lift this weight thinking in your head that I am only contracting my bicep to let this weight come up, you get a lot more stimulation than if you were to grab a 35 or 40 pound curl and just try to like yank the whole thing up with your whole body using your chest and your delts and your forearms and everything like that. But this one burns. It kills when you're doing it properly. For those of you who know, you know. Did that for 4 sets. Pretty much stuck with 25 the whole time. And then we moved on to the second exercise. Some concentration curls with 1 arm at a time, 12 reps per arm. I start with my right arm because it is less strong than my left arm. Typically by about 1 to 2 reps with any given weight. So I try to always hit it first, and whatever amount of reps I get on that arm, I'll match it with my left arm. Just knowing that if I were to start my left arm and I get 12 reps, I might only be able to do 8 to 9 on the right. So better safe than sorry. You don't want to play into any imbalance. Just start with the weaker side if you're going to do one side at a time. What you'll see here, I'll kind of pin my elbow and the back of my arm against my leg, just to sort of isolate that area a bit more. And this is meant to work on the peak of the bicep a little bit. We'll see how much validity that really holds when you look at the science of lifting. Good times. So, moving on to that third, final bicep exercise. We're going to do an exercise that I actually watched a lot of Phil Heath doing, which is a drag curl, meaning you're doing a hammer curl, but more towards the inside and midline of your body, and hitting 5 reps before you switch for 5 reps, and then doing that twice on each arm for a total of 10 reps per arm. And that gives your arms a little bit of a break while the other one is working, which sometimes can mean that you can lift a heavier weight. Alright, so workout is over. We finished up back biceps. We did a little bit of posing practice, and then we did 25 minutes on the Stairmaster. Stairmaster was tough to get used to initially. I think I was like only 10 minutes in the first time that I was doing it, and it was really, really tough, and I was sweating bullets. Still end up sweating bullets when I do it. But now I'm up to 25 minutes, and I think that for any sustained cardio where you're just trying to stay at a constant speed that's not necessarily high intensity, just kind of lower intensity or medium intensity, if you have YouTube and you have Wi-Fi, man, like, you could last on there forever. You can just like get on there, do what you gotta do, and watch some videos. I tend to watch sports highlights for your mainly the NBA playoffs right now, or the NHL playoffs. It's a lot of fun. Or sometimes then I'm just going on like motivational videos for either bodybuilding or just fitness or life and things of that nature. So it's a good time. Anyway, we got to Costco just now. We're gonna go in and get our weekly haul. This Costco in particular, the parking is absolutely horrendous. There's so many people here every single time. So it's a good, like, it feels like I have to walk half a kilometer just to get to the front door from where I park. Anyway, we're going to get in there, get what we have to get, and I'll show you guys what I got once we're back and I have it all laid out on the island. Talk to you guys soon. Okay, so here we are with our bags of goodies for the week. And let's just get these laid out onto the island right here. 3, 2, 1. Bang, just like that. So, bringing you guys through a little bit of a tour. We got, most importantly, is going to be our protein sources that we picked up. So, Costco chicken breast right here, classic. Very low in fat, super dense in protein per gram, I guess, of chicken, if you want to say that. But I'd taken a break off chicken for the last few weeks. Kind of got a bit of like a chicken ick, I guess. I just got totally sick of the taste. I will admit part of that, or a good part of that's probably in my prep. I tended to just season it, not necessarily marinate it, but season it and then bake it. But I think now that it's getting a little bit warmer outside, I might start barbecuing and seeing how that goes. So that'll definitely make it a little bit more enjoyable. So chicken. Next up is a staple that I've been making sure to have every single week, and that's lean ground beef. I believe this one is 90% lean and 10% fat. Although when I do cook it and make the ground beef, I do scoop it out with a ladle that has perforations in it, so that kind of the fat separates from the rest of the meat. So hopefully that kind of minimizes some of the fat that I'm getting out of it. Not saying that fat's bad for you to have. You need that for the hormonal processes and balance. But I tend to like getting my fat from some other sources if I can. So I'll usually ground this up, mix this really well with rice. Otherwise, sometimes if I'm feeling like I want to have, burgers in the week, I'll buy some hamburger buns. I'll make like 4 patties or so, and I can have those just during the week. So about 2.5 kilos of that. And if there is extra, I will use a freezer bag to kind of separate whatever's left over, whatever I don't need that I can save for the week after, and I'll freeze that right away. Next up here, egg whites. These are 4 cartons of 500 grams. Usually in my breakfast I'll have 200 grams of egg whites, so this will last me throughout the week pretty well. I'll also buy kind of just the bag of 32 eggs, like whole eggs. But that'll last me a bit longer because I'll only have 2 of those in my breakfast, whereas I'll have 200 grams of egg whites. So good to restock on this, probably restocking every week or 2 on the egg whites. Some organic Greek yogurt, also an amazing thing to have. Typically more so if you're dieting, in my opinion, but you could have this also when you're bulking. For 175 grams of yogurt, which is not the worst serving size, it's only 100 calories, 17 grams of protein, 8 grams of carbs with no fat. So this goes really well if you want to throw fruits into there, if you want to sometimes put a scoop of protein powder mixed into it. It also tends to do really well. Otherwise, you can also put like granola, nuts, things of that nature to make it a bit more exciting. But super easy, and to be honest, I love to have Greek yogurt almost as a substitute to like sour cream, for example. So if I'm making wraps with chicken or beef and I want to put something that's going to give it a bit more of a kind of creamier consistency, that is a healthier option. Greek yogurt's a great way to go. Finally, got a couple of fruit bundles. Bananas I love to have prior to training. So in the mornings I'll usually have like 1 banana. I'll weigh it out without the peel. It's important to do without the peel. I'll weigh it out, eat it along with something else. Maybe that's going to be some dates, maybe it's going to be a fig bar typically, and that's going to allow me to get about 50 grams of carbs in prior to the training, which will stave off some of the cortisol buildup from working out, because that can happen if you're training on an empty stomach. So bananas, about 1, 2, 3, 6 of these, so 6 training days. And then some grapes, more from my girlfriend. She's a big fan of grapes, but sometimes I'll grab some of these and I'll throw it into Greek yogurt. I'll just kind of munch on them, but obviously I do track them. And then finally, last thing we got was a bag of broccoli. These are from Ecuador. They are frozen, so I'm not gonna keep talking too long. I'm gonna throw them into the freezer. But I think it's about 4 bags. 4 bags of 500 grams. So you toss this in the microwave just to pretty much unfreeze it, and they're good to go after that. Sometimes they end up being a little bit mushy because it's kind of like steaming within the bag. But great option. good source of fiber. Broccoli is fantastic to have. I could technically buy heads of broccoli and steam them myself. I don't know. I think this is just a bit more convenient. If it ends up costing me the show in 5 months, then this won't age well at all. So it is what it is. But usually I'll microwave 1 or 2 bags of that during the meal prep. And I'll just have that like spread through my meals throughout the week. Fiber, super important to allow the food to be in your gut just a little longer so you can have more time to absorb the nutrients from the food you're getting. Because that's something that they don't talk about often, is that something can contain, let's say, 30 grams of protein or 50 grams of carbs, but how much of that is your body actually absorbing fully, right? And the argument of, you know, foods that are processed versus unprocessed will come into play. I think that if a food is ultra processed, it goes through many transformations from the moment that it starts out to when it actually arrives on your plate, then it tends to just be a little less bioabsorbable, if that makes sense, or you tend to maybe absorb like less efficiently for that food. Versus if I were to pick an apple off of a tree and eat that apple, more often than not, I'm pretty much going to absorb all the sugar or carbohydrates from that apple versus drinking, you know, an applesauce that might be from some sort of no-name brand. But anyway, I'm going to put this all away and I'll give you guys a bit of an update on what my coach and I went over this past week and how our diet's going to change in the coming weeks. So, finally changed. I'm going to be having my first solid, or I guess my first full solid meal of the day. It's been about an hour and a half since I got back from Costco. Post-workout, I had a shake, so that kind of counts as a bit of a meal that had 50 grams of protein and 50 grams of carbs. I've seen a massive difference actually having carbs post-workout as well as pre-workout, rather than just a protein shake post-workout to just kickstart the recovery and begin restoring that sort of glycogen in your body. Anyway, here we got 250 grams of rice and 200 grams of lean ground beef with some broccoli kind of sprinkled in there. Looks like this. It's nothing special, no sauces or anything, but ground beef is seasoned. So let's talk about the check-in I had with my coach. So I'm usually seeing my bodybuilding coach about every 4 weeks, typically. That was kind of when we first started working together, about 1 year out of the competition. And lately it's been every couple of weeks because he just wants to make sure that we're remeasuring my body fat using these skin calipers consistently to make sure that I'm kind of where I need to be, and that if we need to make adjustments, we're not waiting a whole month between those adjustments. So I was told that he wanted me to be at sub 10% body fat before we could start increasing my calories gradually and, you know, lean gaining or lean bulking, just so that when I do decide to diet down for the competition, which is going to be a pretty intense, we're going to say about 12 weeks, give or take, then I'm going to have a lot higher chance to not necessarily lose muscle during that cutting phase because I won't have as much body fat to lose. I won't have to be in such a big deficit that I'm going to sacrifice strength and muscle as a result. If my deficit is small and I only have about 4 to 5% of body fat to lose, I can do that over, 3 to 4 months, being in a very small deficit of what I would imagine would be like 150 to 200 calories. And so, beginning of April, I measured in at 8.6% body fat. Then my coach wanted me to just stay on the diet and stay with the calories that I was doing at the time so that I can spend time at that body fat percentage. That's one thing that he explained to me not a lot of people do, is they may hit a certain goal or hit a certain body weight that they want or body fat percentage and then think, all right, good, like cut's done, let me bounce back and just start rebulking. And that's usually why you'll see people rebound in their weight after they do some sort of, more intense diet or crash diet, they'll lose 10 pounds, and then within a week, all the 10 pounds is back. A lot of it's water weight, obviously, but it's also just the fact that your body was used to being at, for example, 14 or 15% body fat. Now you drop to 10%, it spends a week there, and then you're back to going towards what the norm was. All that to say, it's been 4 weeks. I got remeasured. I was at 8.5%, so I dropped a sliver of body fat. And he's happy with where it's at. So hopefully, by the next time I talk to you guys, I'm going to get to increase my calories by maybe about 100 or 200 calories. And just very gradually see if I can put on some muscle mass in the next 2 months before I start the whole dieting down for a show phase, which is going to be, I think, about 3 months out. So it's been weird to see, and I guess a little bit tough to process at times, the fact that I have to go so slowly, right, with bulking, with cutting and all that stuff. Because, I've watched a lot of videos, seen a lot of content in the bodybuilding world where people bulk up to big sizes. You see their body fat goes up quite drastically, and then they'll cut down. It's super intense for 3 months or so, and then they're shredded on stage. But as a natural athlete, as a natural bodybuilder, you can't necessarily go so drastically, because there are going to be things that enhance athletes, or that people who are or people who are taking steroids will just not have to factor in during that time. The goal is always to be able to drop as much body fat as possible while maintaining as much muscle mass as possible. And when you don't necessarily have any external aids to help you with maintaining muscle, and that it might actually encourage mobilization of fat tissue rather than muscle, then you definitely have to be a little more careful with the things that you eat, and how quickly you go into that deficit, and how drastic that deficit is. Overall, I'm at a point where I'm super, super happy with my physique, with how things look. This is the longest I've ever spent time at being sub 10% body fat. So at the gym, I may not necessarily be gaining strength in a lot of my lifts. I still am in a couple, but I'm very happy with what I see in the mirror. However, obviously, the bar for me is going to be competition ready, and that's going to be at an even lower body fat than it is now. So I'm happy with where things at, but the job's not necessarily even begun to start with the cutting and all that stuff. And being at the current macros that I have, where I'm eating 2,500 calories on days that I train, 2,000 calories on the days that I'm resting. It's just my rest days that I might feel a little bit hungry at certain points, but the training days I feel pretty satisfied, and not necessarily feel like I'm starving myself in any way possible. And my lifts and strength haven't necessarily suffered as a result either. Something that was also pretty cool that happened yesterday was I went to an event in Montreal that was kind of like a fitness expo called FitLog. And that was downtown. And wouldn't you guess, 4-time Mr. Olympia, Mr. Jay Cutler, was actually there. Him, along with a few other notable names, came out to the event to meet and greet fans and give a bit of a talk. Now for me, if there's any bodybuilder that I find personality-wise I can relate with, it's Jay Cutler. His whole approach to the training and the lifestyle was just everything within my control: sleep, food, training. I'm not going to miss on that stuff because I'm in control of that, and I'm going to make the most I can with what I got. So he would always, advocate and talk about never missing meals, never missing training sessions, always being ready to do what he had to do and stay on top of his routine and on track with everything that he had to do. And I actually got something from him. which I'll show you guys right here. So you can just see that, right? This is his famous quad stomp pose that he did when he won, well, when he came back and won Mr. Olympia after losing it to Dexter Jackson. The thing it says here, it says to Shayne, there is no secret. And the reason that I asked for him to write that was because there's an interview that he does where he's talking about how people are always asking him, you know, what's the secret of bodybuilding and what's the secret to getting big and what's the secret of, you know, being able to compete and be in the best shape possible. And he kind of simply says, there is no secret. You know, everyone knows what you have to do. You have to eat well, you have to train hard, you have to be consistent and stay disciplined with the things that you might have to give up to hit that goal and the things that you're going to have to do in order to achieve it. And there's nothing more to it than just doing the thing. And it seems like a pretty simple quote at the time of hearing it. But when you think about a lot of the different goals that we go through in life, how to do it isn't necessarily the hard part. It's actually just doing it. If you want to run a marathon, you got to go outside. You got to run longer distances. You got to run for a long time. If you want to bodybuild and you want to do a competition, you have to go to the gym consistently for years on end and just be able to make sure that you can perform, stay on top of the food, stay on top of sleep and recovery, and then the results come as a result. That sounded terrible, but the results will come. So I always remember what he said about that. And then at FitLog yesterday, after waiting in line for a little bit, I got to meet the guy. And Jay Cutler is a super nice guy. He is there for the fans. He's talking to people. Even when he's on his way to like walk towards the booth, he's stopping. He's giving people handshakes. He's saying what's up. He's giving people props. He took a good like 2-3 minutes and just chatted with me and stuff. And they started asking me questions. Like he wanted to legitimately know. He wasn't just, you know, saying hi, taking a picture, signing something, and then like, you know, looking away and not even making eye contact with you the whole time. He's a good dude. I also met Greg Doucette. He's very nice too. Greg Doucette's a chill guy. With all that said, things are going great. I hope that you guys learned a couple of things from the back training that we did. Got a little bit of insight to some things that I talked about with our grocery haul, and that you enjoy this whole talk while we have our meal here. If you haven't already, please hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel if this is something that you enjoy. If you want to follow that journey of seeing what it's like to compete in a natural bodybuilding show and what that takes and maybe some of the intricacies and differences between natural and enhanced, how that goes, then this is going to be the prep series for you to follow throughout the summer and into the early fall of this year. Thanks so much for your time. It's been great seeing you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.